everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Sunday, y'all. Hope you're doing well. Excited to be back, talk to you about all of the transits this week. You know, for the most part, and this is partially why we're going to talk mostly about the full moon in Sag. I want to get a little bit ahead of it and let you guys know what's coming. We're just having a lot of lunar transits this week, so we'll get into it a little bit. Big news would be Mercury is now direct, yay! Although we don't leave the shadow until closer to about June 16th. And right after Mercury stations direct, Saturn goes retrograde in Aquarius. So we've still got some kind of funky energy with Mercury in the sign of Taurus making squares to Saturn. Saturn goes retrograde. We're going to be reevaluating our karmic fate. And just a ton of lunar transits this week, leading up to Venus conjunct Uranus and Taurus and a Sag full moon. So we're going to move through the astro weather lunar transits. I'm going to talk to you about how to plan the week ahead. But for the most part, probably the bigger transits are actually going to be coming from this Venus conjunct Uranus and Taurus. And the lunar transits will also activate that a little bit as well. So let's take a look at the week ahead. This is going to be for June 5th through the 12th of 2022. And then we're going to get into the full moon in Sagittarius. Big thank you to all my members, my subscribers. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, giving me a thumbs up, leaving me a comment, or subscribing. I appreciate your interaction. It helps get my videos out into the YouTube algorithm and share with other astrology lovers. Do consider joining my memberships or donating if you enjoy watching my content. We're able to put out more the more that you guys support the channel. So let's go ahead and get into the week ahead. It starts with today's Sunday, June 5th. So we've got Mercury direct. Mercury is strong, y'all. I don't know if you're feeling it, but the shadow, the pre-shadow for this retrograde and the post-shadow, probably because of the squares to Saturn, which is kind of grinding the gears. It's delaying things, still difficult kind of getting back to people, getting responses, but you're gonna see that kind of clear up over the next couple of days. Now, when Mercury gets back into the sign of Gemini, I think that's when we're really going to start cooking with gas, and we're going to see that things are going to begin to kind of shift forward. But while it's still stationed and in this strong square to Saturn and Aquarius, just be mindful that when the moon goes into the later degrees of Leo today, you're going to feel that like, I need to do this, but I want to do that, right? I want to go have fun, but I have responsibilities. This will be the moon in opposition to Saturn. And it's also going to be coming into some uncomfortable squares with other planets in fixed signs. So you're going to feel that this and that kind of all day today. Now tomorrow on the 6th, we're going to see that the moon then moves into Virgo. I'm liking it. It's going to form a nice trine to both Venus and Uranus and Taurus. So it's going to help us make sense of changes. It's going to feel very grounded, very earthy. Tomorrow's a great day to like get organized. It's a great day to like clean things up. It's a great day to like assess things, anything relating to health, wellness. I'm liking some of those trines. That's going to be one of the better days to kind of get stuff done. Then on the 7th, we're going to see the moon continue in the sign of Virgo, but it's going to come into an opposition with Neptune in Pisces. This will also create a square to the sun in Gemini. So we're going to see a lot of mutable squares this week, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about T-squares, but as we see these squares, things are changing, right? The mutable signs are here to kind of usher us into what will be new cardinal energy. Now, I talked about this in my month ahead video, but we're going to see later in the month of June, the sun's going to move into Cancer, and we're going to start a new cycle, right? We're going to have the summer solstice, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. When this happens, there's tons of brand new energy with the squares to planets in Aries. So you may feel this week, next week, like, oh, things are changing. We're moving into like a new phase of life. And I think that mutable squares create, especially with Neptune, this strange kind of like distortion in terms of how we interpret information, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and just our overall sense of kind of feeling grounded, right? Because these energies are about being changeable in nature. So the moon in Virgo in opposition to Neptune can be a difficult time emotionally relating, feeling like we need to kind of retreat a little bit. The storyline is changing also with that square to the sun in Gemini. So if you're very mutable heavy, right? So if you've got a lot of Gemini or if you've got a lot of Virgo, Sag, Pisces, the next couple days you're really going to be feeling these squares pretty intensely leading up to the full moon in Sag. Still not a difficult day though. It's just, you know, changes. All right, then we have on the 8th of June, we're gonna have the moon then move into the sign of Libra. Now this is gonna be about relating, partnership, balance, but we're gonna see it form an opposition to Jupiter. So big feelings, especially in the afternoon of the 8th. So this is gonna be on Wednesday, quite the hump day. Moon opposed Jupiter can feel very optimistic, big emotions, very expansive, especially when it starts moving into the opposition the next day, also with Mars. So you're gonna feel that opposition late in the day on the 8th. Then going into the 9th, we're gonna see the moon in Libra oppose Mars and Chiron. We wanna watch for issues with relationships. We wanna watch for being too aggressive, moving too quickly, you know, being a little self-absorbed, not considering other people. So while the moon is in Libra, we really want to be playing off of these nice trines that are going to be building from Saturn and Aquarius, helping us emotionally relate better, try to be team players, think about the overall kind of timeline when it comes to relationships and what our goals may be. And then we've also got the sun trine the moon. I love that in the lunar cycle. Whenever we see the sun come into the trine with the moon, it doesn't matter what element it's in. You're going to start seeing kind of emotions and actions kind of coming together beautifully, very seamlessly. And that'll really kind of bleed also into the 10th as well. But then on the 10th, we see Mercury make its third trine to Pluto. So throughout the Mercury retrograde, we saw Mercury go from the sign of Taurus into Gemini. It retrograded back to Taurus, hit that square to Saturn, and it's made several trines to Pluto. For me, I've realized that it's been about having to go back and be strategic with planning and really thinking things through. And Taurus takes its sweet time. So I think that it's taken us a little bit longer to really think about what our values are, where our power lies, thinking strategically with the trines to Pluto, deep, insightful kind of conversations about where we're going, especially for the rest of the year, like planning when it comes to money, Taurus, food, resources, and then also power, control, planning, our desires, our passion with all those trines to Pluto. So if you look back at my previous videos, I've talked about this trine. This is the final one before it gets back into Gemini. So you may be wrapping up conversations that you've been having or negotiations that you've been having. Research is a big thing that I see with Pluto-Mercury aspects as well. Now, the same day, we're also going to see the moon in Libra. It's going to trine Saturn, and it's also going to be trining the sun in Gemini. So really the 9th and the 10th, great communication days, great days to be circling back to somebody. Hey, did you get my email? Let's sit down, let's hash it out, let's talk about it, let's strategize, things like that. Now that Mercury is forming that really powerful trine to Pluto, but there's a lot of air elements that are floating with that grand air trine. So if you need to sit down and talk to a friend, talk to a partner, you need to plan something, you know, have a meeting or make a phone call, the 9th and the 10th are both really awesome days to be able to do that. When in doubt, communicate when you have an air trine. Well, things get a little active from then on once we get to June 11th. Now on the 11th on Saturday, this is when Venus will conjunct Uranus in Taurus. I did a little bit of a video about that, talking about how Venus, the planet of love and relationships, when it meets with Uranus, which wants freedom, something that's unusual, different, a little rebellious, there can be lots of loud situations going on in relationships, in regard to like art, self-expression, money, personal freedom in relationships, all this stuff. You know, Venus is very happy in Taurus, and I talked a little bit about how Venus's trek through this sign was going to be a little uncomfortable and a little unusual. And that it first starts with Venus's conjunction to Uranus that wants to liberate. I have Venus conjunct Uranus in my natal chart, and I have found that it's just needing this sense of free self-expression. At least for me personally, it's gonna be different on each individual chart, but it can also be like loud pops of color or like needing unconventional relationships, really wacky or kind of weird or strange eclectic styles, you know, the list goes on. But as we see this transit happen, in our personal relationships, there can be a little bit of friction, a little bit of rebellion going on because what we value or what we deem to be pleasurable may differ from other people, right? Taurus is very personal. Uranus is very much about the collective. In the markets, we're going to see lots of high adventure going on, lots of ups and downs and peaks and valleys over the next couple of days because of the conjunction that's taking place with these two planets. But just after that, we're also going to see Venus touch on the North Node and also square Saturn. So there is a process of really, I think, redeveloping what it means to feel secure, feel in our bodies, what tastes good, what feels good. We're sampling new foods. Maybe we're wearing colors and patterns that we wouldn't usually wear. Maybe we're trying new beauty routines. Maybe we're wearing a different perfume or a cologne. We don't know if we like it, right? That's this Venus, Uranus, and Taurus. Then when it touches on the North Node, it's also going to bring about this theme of like, okay, but this feels good. This feels more authentic. Then it will bump up and it'll come into the square with Saturn, which is the sacrifices and the changes that we have to make in order to feel more stable. Now, in a global sense, right, because Taurus is very much about money, food, resources. Aquarius is about the collective. We've seen this materialize as like delays in the supply chain, things that we can't buy, things that we can't afford, rising prices of food, and how we're having to make sacrifices socially to be able to compensate and feed our families, pay our bills. So I think a lot of people throughout this next week are really going to be feeling the crunch of that, but they're going to be coming up with new and unconventional ways to be able to, I think, feel secure. So it's like, instead of being the family that throws the big expensive pool party and you pay to cater the food and you provide that for everybody, you decide to shift gears and go like, okay, we're going to have, a party where everybody's going to kind of bring something. It's going to be, bring your own food, bring your own beer, whatever. That's that Saturn and Aquarius kind of collective energy. There's going to be more bartering going on. There's going to be more people thinking about how can we grow food, how can we share food, how can we buy in bulk and be able to share with other people and kind of monopolizing the ability to be able to get lower prices while supporting other people. So look for that. You're going to hear a lot of that stuff kind of going on over the next week. Yes, change is uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when we have these Venus-Uranus conjunctions, especially involving the North Node, collectively, there is going to be a sense of relationships that have been having problems can break down. We can see that, but it's going to be something that's already been kind of hovering right beneath the surface for some time. And we're going to start to see the cracks kind of come about purely because people are not feeling like what they're engaging in is authentic or it's not like true love, right? Taurus is very simple. It doesn't need all the bells and the whistles, so it doesn't need to have all of the things that it may not necessarily feel is necessary in order to be in an organic type of relationship. So think about that. We want to get back to basics. We want to focus on what's going to make us feel secure and good and in our bodies, and we're going to be talking a lot about pleasure. And if you have to make those sacrifices for security, if you have to make those sacrifices, know that it's all about getting back down to basics. Watch that video if you want more information on that. Then on the, one other thing. This is going to be majorly triggered, okay? Not just because the Venus-Uranus conjunction, but the moon will be in Scorpio this day. So the moon is in opposition, kind of bringing about this sense of like, oh, how does that make you feel? Isn't that scary? Like, what are you going to do without the chocolate cake? What are you going to do without the full face of makeup? Or what are you going to do without the regular kind of spending sprees on your credit card? The moon will bring up these themes of, isn't that scary? Are you worried about what you don't have? Because it's making that opposition to Venus and Uranus. So I think people are acting out and they're going like, no, this is mine. I need this. I can't give this up. But shortly after, the next day, the moon is going to move into conjunction with the South Node in Scorpio. So we're emotionally purging, we're emotionally detoxing, we're letting go. I'm really liking the fact that this is also going to trine Neptune every part of the month, every lunar cycle. I always note when the moon goes through Scorpio, it touches that South Node and it trines Neptune, because I'm like, this is take out the trash day. This is like okay to be hot and messy and ugly crying in your car. That's something you need to do. It's kind of part of the course when you have the moon in Scorpio. But with that South Node, we're releasing things emotionally that, frankly, it's just time for them to go, right? So look for that, especially considering once the moon gets into the later degrees of Scorpio, it's going to square Saturn again, right? And it's going to be like, okay, but this is the sacrifices we need to make right now to be able to be better prepared for the long term. That's how I've been kind of feeling. Every single time moon goes through Leo or it goes through Scorpio, I've been feeling every single time it's like, oh, I gotta make this sacrifice and like this is difficult, but I know if I do it now, it's gonna be easier. And I'm trying to kind of pretend that Saturn is still direct because knowing that Saturn is retrograde, you can kind of fall off the horse, right? You can fall back into old patterns. There can be a sense of getting a little bit too comfortable because the pressure is going to kind of come down a little bit. So for me, I think it's just been kind of taking note to when the moon goes into these fixed signs and it enacts this grand fixed cross. That's like, no, all 4 areas of this part of my chart need to change. I don't know if you guys are fixed signs, if you're feeling that, but oh boy, the last month has been a lot. And then we wrap up on the 12th also with, like I said, that moon square Saturn. So you're definitely coming off of the effects of whatever was going on the 10th and the 11th and the sacrifice you had to make and how it's like quite emotional to be purging and releasing and letting go of like toxic emotional behavior, right? That's South Node in Scorpio. So hopefully you guys do well as that kind of moves on. I'm going to shift into talking now about the full moon in Sag because while there's stuff going on this week, it's not entirely too busy. So I figured we'll get a head start and talk about the full moon in Sag, which yes, it's going to be on the 14th. So it's going to be next week, but yeah, better to be early than late, right? So let me bring this back so you can see the exact degree that this is going to be at. It's going to be right around 23 degrees and change. All right, so let's talk about this full moon in Sag. I have lots of cool stuff to share with you guys about this lunation. I found some really interesting midpoints that were coming up for me. I want to talk to you guys about the aspects. And really, in so many ways, all week is leading up to this, right? And I like the aspects. I think that it's still very changeable. Probably what really sticks out for me the most is going to be that mutable T-square. We're seeing Neptune and Pisces be that apex point. If you look at the chart for the 9 o'clock hour, it's actually forming the square with the moon and also with the sun. So we'll talk about what that means and how there is some sense of changing and dissolving and releasing and letting go. Yes, the moon is in Sag. We want to know where that's taking place, but do not overlook Neptune because Neptune, I think, is kind of our blind spot in this particular full moon. And Neptune is sitting in a very important midpoint that I think for some people, this lunation is going to take us a little bit by surprise. I could be wrong, but I think it's going to take us a little bit by surprise just because some of the midpoint action and the mutable squares. So what is a full moon? Well, we have it every month. This is when the sun comes into opposition with the moon. So we're wrapping up what has been for the last 2 weeks, a new lunar cycle. We just recently had that new moon in Gemini 2 weeks ago. This is the full moon in Sagittarius. Now we're also working on intentions that we have been setting since Sagittarius season 2021. So you want to look back at what was going on end of November going into December. What have you been working on since then? This is the kind of big finale. I say 2020 because this actually goes back to an eclipse that we had in 2020 as well. So getting a little ahead of myself, but that's okay. So this particular full moon is going to be June 14th, 2022, and that's at 4:51 a.m. Pacific time, 7:51 a.m. Eastern time. Obviously, check your time zones. I know we got people all over the globe, so some of you guys are going to have it at different times depending on where you are. And it'll be at 23 degrees and change of Sagittarius. Now, like I said, it's the same degree as an eclipse. So I was thinking back, I was like, wait a second. We had an eclipse somewhere around this degree. And then I was flipping through my ephemeris. And sure enough, back on December 14th, 2020, there was a solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So it was a new moon solar eclipse in Sag. This is completing something that started back then. So you want to go back 2 years ago to mid-December of 2020. Think about what was happening in your life at that period, what was going on. This is kind of the full, complete cycle. And because it's happening at the same degree as an eclipse, I think it's going to be pretty intense in my opinion. Now the Sabian symbol will be technically around 24 degrees. So I want to read that to you guys. Obviously my handy dandy Sabian symbol book. If you guys aren't aware, I've got an Amazon link below. So if you see me use any decks or if you see me use any books or anything and you want to check it out, you can do so. You can see what I'm reading. I update that every now and then. So let's take a look at 24 degrees. So it's 24 degrees of Sag. A bluebird standing in the door of the house. The keyword is fortune. The theme is providence. The symbol speaks to the dangers of missing the rewards and experience by failing to recognize or pay attention to them when they arrive. This degree also stresses the importance of possessing a proper sense of self-worth. Life tends to give men what they believe they have the right to receive. The image of a bluebird standing at the door symbolizes happiness, good fortune, and luck. The emphasis here is the need to stay alert and be ready to respond when opportunity knocks. On a practical level, this translates to listening and watching for signs and signatures and recognizing fortunate convergences. At its highest, it symbolizes a positive outlook and a remarkable sense of timing, a natural gift for being in the right place at the right time, catching a falling star, or a brass ring. The accent is on good fortune and prosperity. This could be a lucky day. Your greatest advantage lies in expecting the best. There are no accidents. Look for unusual convergences or things that come together at a space in significant ways. Guard against missing your chance for happiness by telling yourself you don't deserve it or being too selective and picky. Pretty good, right? It's not often that the Sabian symbols are so incredibly positive. And, you know, like I said, we do round up, but 23 degrees of Sag, it's about trying something new. It's doing something different. So to be honest with you, this is something we've been working on really for the better part of like the last, like what, year and a half? I mean, so since the end of 2020. Now, what's interesting to me also is just that I think back then I was looking at the chart, we also had Mars in Aries. So it was in some similar points. I think actually when we had that eclipse, Mars was at like 20 degrees of Aries. So it's very close to the same point that we had it. When Mars starts to come and trine this particular degree in like the next week or two, it's going to add motivation. We're going to see positive movement. There's going to be swift movement, positive changes, lots of like, not intensity, but like charisma, right? Like we're going to start seeing like we're getting really excited about some of the changes that we're making. So obviously Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So this is a Jupiterian kind of sign. Sag traditionally rules the 9th house. So it's about gurus, philosophy, travel, higher education, where we connect to God. Things that involve legality, anything that involves publishing. These are all Sagittarius type, you know, themes. Now, the ruler of this lunation obviously is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Aries. So you see Jupiter hanging out at 5 degrees. Not quite making trines. It's out of the trine aspect, but we're still seeing by sign quite a few fire trines that are going to be taking place between Jupiter, Mars, and Chiron. Now, my concern, right, has been, like I said, that mutable T-square. So if you look at the 9 o'clock hour, we've got Neptune in Pisces. Within 2 degrees, it's in a square to the moon at 23 and the sun at 23. So the apex point is that kind of Neptune in the 12th house energy. Now, when we see a mutable T-square, so planets that involve Gemini, Virgo, Sag, or Pisces, they're more suited to the learning environment and have greater adaptability, creativity, and the drive to learn about something new, something different. So mutable signs tend to act to new situations by being flexible, but they can also be too changeable, right? So we've got all these, you know, these degrees in the 3rd decan. So we've got 23 for the sun and the moon, 25 for Pisces. I think this is about looking at wherever Neptune is in your natal chart and recognizing that where that is, there's something that needs to change. The faith needs to change. We need to dissolve something. We need to let something go. Maybe we need to look at it with a new set of eyes. Neptune can go one of 2 ways, right? So there can be this sense of needing to add a little bit more belief, or there can be a sense of being like, I don't think I'm seeing this too clearly, right? Let me take off my glasses and clean the lenses. So be careful, because Neptune is actually challenging where this particular lunation is kind of coming in. And to make it very simple, Gemini is kind of just kind of learning the lingo. It's just basic, you know, kind of communication and education. Sag is that higher mind. So I look at Gemini as kind of elementary school. Sagittarius is being able to go to college. Pisces is going to be like, but what do you believe in? And where is it time to kind of shift or pivot and release and let go of things that we don't understand, we don't believe in, we can't comprehend, or it's something that's invisible that's actually blocking or hindering us from being able to understand the bigger picture. So I actually think that there's a method to the madness with Neptune, which led me further into going, okay, what's going on with midpoints? There's got to be a midpoint going on here, because it looks like Neptune's right around the midpoint for the North Node and Pluto. And sure enough, that's the case. So planets activating the nodal points. So if you're not familiar with midpoints, they're little magical, invisible calculations. Sometimes I'll talk about them if they're really important for lunations, and in this case they are. So the north and the south node relate specifically to the moon. So if you've got the moon aspecting the midpoints to the lunar nodes, it's kind of a big deal. And I think this could be something that could very easily be overlooked. But when planets are activating the Pluto node, north or south, right? North is our dharma, where we're kind of going, what we're here to achieve. South is what we're releasing or letting go. When you see a planet activate this, it's an intensely strong pull towards the past or the future, depending on how you look at it. The need to overcome this so we can make progress. It's like a tug of war between the past and the future. Connecting with others who have a huge impact on us and help us move through power struggles. So basically, if you have this planet, or if you have a planet activating this point in your natal chart, it talks about the whole past, present tug of war. In this lunation, it's interesting because we've got a planet that's activating the north node, Pluto midpoint, so it's what we need to change and transform to evolve, and we have a planet activating the south node Pluto midpoint, yeah, that's definitely gonna kind of mix things up a little bit. It's gonna make this full moon, I think, a little spicy. So specifically, the moon is activating the Pluto south node midpoint, okay? So if you see the south node's in Scorpio, right, releasing and letting go of pain, trauma, fear, anything in regards to where we've been hurt or abused or mistreated. And then we've got Pluto in Capricorn, which deals with like power and control, and we're seeing Pluto retrograde. So we're going deep and we're kind of examining where have our fears been, where are we giving our power away, what needs to change and transform. So there's the moon. So the moon is activating the Pluto south node midpoint. So that's pretty significant because this is a full moon, so this is going to be really important. So when the moon activates a south node south node Pluto midpoint, we're going to feel vulnerable to the power of other people, basically. And this is going to be amplified because it's going to be a full moon lunation. So we might feel the past on one hand as being oppressive, yet we're extremely drawn to connecting to it, especially south node Pluto is like, that's toxic, but I love it. We all know those couples, right? We just can't stop watching. It's like a train wreck. Or the bad habit that we just keep going back to, right? So it can be in Sag, our toxic, like kind of like self-righteous way of being, some like really toxic perspectives when it comes to people being judgmental based off of somebody's belief system, Sag, or their background or their origin or their ethnicity. We can see some really difficult like race discussions that are going on as a result of this full moon. We can also see kind of the darker side of what's going on with some legal situations, especially involving crime, especially involving the rights of people who may be foreigners, the rights of people who have been oppressed, people being treated differently because of their belief systems or where they come from. But I could also see this being some really horrible things coming out within the legal system that's just flat out wrong, right? Because it's in Sag. So we're also going to notice that there is this need to be very careful about who we form connections to or with, and we're trying to seek, we're going to be seeking people who want to like nurture us, and we want to be careful with that because we want to be focusing more on our own personal growth than on dependency. So we got to think Pluto is obsession, fixation, South Node is the past, Sag is, but I believe this is how things were always supposed to go. We got to let that go, right? I thought I knew everything. No, we didn't know everything. And I think it's also going to bring up this topic, and I've been thinking about this a lot, that education doesn't necessarily equate to somebody's intelligence. You can have a bachelor's degree and just not really know what's going on in the world, right? And vice versa. I've seen a lot of people who didn't complete higher forms of education. They're entrepreneurs and they're just like freakishly brilliant, right? So we're going to realize that education doesn't necessarily equate to intelligence. And I think cultural divides are something that really kind of needs to go because it's going to be kind of hindering us and setting us back. Now on the flip side, we've got Neptune in Pisces, and Neptune is activating the Pluto North Node midpoint. So where we're all spiraling because of that South Node Pluto midpoint in Sag. Neptune, I think, activating the Pluto North Node midpoint is going like, hey, what's up? You gotta have a little one-on-one with God. You know, you have to have your come to Jesus moment, or you need to have your time for meditation or reflection, or you need to have your time to really think long and hard about what is messy and needs to go, what needs to be dissolved. Where are you hiding from? What are you running away from? Where are you not wanting to take recognition for? Or what are you kind of denying, right? So when Neptune activates the Pluto North Node midpoint, we have vivid, overwhelming images about our past, potentially about traumatic situations that we have been through. We're intuitively aware of the pressures and intensities going on between ourselves and who we connect with. We might feel confused about power struggles going on with other people, the possibility of obsessively idealizing the past. Our intuition is our guide towards making far-reaching changes that will help us grow. So this full moon squares Neptune, right? It's like, here's all the nasty, negative, toxic stuff that you've been dealing with that you don't want to release and let go of, even though it's scary. And then here's Neptune coming in saying like, all right, this is what you need to do to be able to kind of move away from that. Where I think Sag is our beliefs, Pisces is our inner knowing, right? So we can have the experiences, we can go to college, we can go and travel and do all these things. But when we come back home to Pisces, none of that stuff really matters, because a lot of the knowledge that we have on a soul level. We don't have to go and have all the bells and whistles and the degrees and the experiences. We don't have to go to the retreats. We don't have to necessarily go and sit with the priest or even with the shaman, right? Because in the end, we have that connection to consciousness. We know that if we sit and we're open to receive, we can actually find the answers. We don't have to justify them. So I think it's really bringing up this theme of where there is some kind of messiness with this full moon. Don't just look at where the full moon is, right? The crisis can actually be going on in the Sag area of your life, but you want to look to Neptune, or where Neptune is saying, like, does that really align with your beliefs? Are you really walking the walk and talking the talk? Because if you believe and if you trust kind of like the glory plan, then you'll let this kind of fade away. And I think for many of us, it's going to be really difficult actually undergoing this change because it's going to kind of come out of left field. Now, think back to what was happening earlier this year, right? When we had all these stellium of planets going through Pisces, February, March, April, we saw that the Sun, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, right, Mercury, all these planets came into conjunction with Neptune. We felt sluggish, tired, delayed. We felt isolated. And there was a need to like really reflect on, okay, what is it that we believe in? Here's the test, guys. Now you're going to start to see, do you believe in the narrative and what you're seeing on screens, what you're seeing in the news? Do you believe that this is really where the world is going? Watch out for illusions. That's the big thing I would say with Neptune square, is there can be this sense of having the wool pulled over our eyes and going into this like kind of Pisces, that's what I'm going to call this Pisces kind of spin out. And we want to just be really mindful of communication, ideas, information, the media, until we start getting out of these squares, right? Which is not really going to be until like the third week. We're still in the shadow. That's part of this as well. I think until we start seeing Mercury start coming into some trines with Saturn, that's when things are really going to start to stabilize a little bit. So Neptune is the apex. It's what needs to be dissolved, let go of, or looked at more carefully. Please don't overlook Neptune in this lunation. Who's going to feel this the most, right? So Sagittarius, obviously, it's your show. Enjoy this. This is something that you've been building and working towards completing for the better part of the last 6 months. But this goes back to a story that's been changing with you really since the end of 2020, right? With your body, with your perspective, with how you move, how you dress, how you appear. You might be feeling like you're finally coming full circle with some of your physical goals. Maybe there's some big unveiling that's going on. There's like a new haircut. There's some new way of dressing. Maybe you're feeling kind of more fulfilled and empowered in who you are and in your own skin. But mutable signs, right? You are going to be feeling this the most. So that is going to be my Geminis, my Virgos, my Pisces, my Sagittarians from 21 to 25 degrees. So if you're in the third decan of the mutable signs, you will be experiencing a square. Godspeed. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but that's okay because it's helping you create change. It's softening something wherever Pisces is in your chart, and it's helping you open up to something new. Now, fire signs like Leo and Aries, you're going to love this, especially if you have planets from 21 to 25 degrees. You're going to be experiencing trines, fire trines. It's going to get you active. It's going to get you moving around, and it's going to feel good. It's going to be exciting. And then my Libras and my Aquariuses from 21 to 25 degrees, you're going to experience a sextile. So that's going to be a welcome energy. Libra, it's going to fill positive energy into your physical body, communicating differently, maybe being seen more. Aquariuses, you're going to be loving this as well because it's going to be making it possible for you to experience more when it comes to being active, your friends, socializing, that kind of stuff, kind of getting in alignment with your goals, okay? So let's talk about the aspects of this full moon, and then I will get into how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. So specifically the aspects that really kind of pique my interest would obviously, other than the moon square Neptune, would be Jupiter sextile Mercury. So, now Mercury is getting back into Gemini, and we're going to see for the following next couple days, for the third time, actually, this will be the third aspect. We've seen this because of the retrograde motion. Jupiter, which is about expansion, positivity, right? Knowledge, information, travel. Jupiter in Aries is what we're expanding within ourselves, what we believe in. Sextiling Mercury is like telling the world what we're doing, right? Finally walking the walk and talking the talk, sharing with other people. Air and fire sextiles I like because it's very quick moving. So we're going to see people moving more, communicating more, traveling more, sharing and exchanging ideas and information. So I think that's like just good news coming on the horizon. Like I said, that Sabian symbol was actually quite positive, but I would not overlook the fact that it's saying in order to see the silver lining in what's going on with this full moon, you have to be willing to actually like seize the moment. There is a sense of having to look at this and going like, I feel like I have to do this and I have to do this right now, right? And if we are really praying and asking for change and for big things to happen in our life, we have to be willing to undergo those tower moments. We have to be willing to level up and go like, okay, whatever's getting cleared is getting cleared so I can get closer to my goal. Not a lot of people realize that manifestation can work that way. If you're manifesting something, it's not just like the clouds part and, heaven, opens up and goes, here you go. Sometimes there has to be a lot of clearing and there's a lot of breakdown that happens to be able to receive whatever it is that we're working towards. So I think that seizing the moment in this sense with this this full moon is going to be about us really recognizing that moment really comes with the idea of like, actually, I can do this. This is possible. Communicating and sharing that and really talking about like the silver lining, I think, of some of the stuff that's been going on revolving around the time of the full moon. We're also going to see that the moon will be in a trine with Mars and Chiron in Aries. Well, Mars and Chiron are conjunct. Okay, y'all, you're going to see this for the next couple days. Definitely bringing up themes of like self-wounding, where we feel wounded, where we need to tend to our wounds emotionally, spiritually, or quite literally physically, right? Especially being the fact that it's at a Gemini degree. So maybe it's like where we talk or think negatively about ourselves. Where it's not as positive when it comes to our day-to-day interactions with others, what comes out of our mouths, what we're writing, what we're texting on a keyboard, right? What we're thinking. The Mars Chiron conjunction can literally be bringing up where we are inflicting wounds on ourselves and where we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. But the trine from the sun to the moon, the moon to Mars is more... that's more active. It's more like emotionally getting fired up and being like, yes, I'm going to do this. This is difficult and this hurt me, but I'm going to make lemonade. So I think we're going to actually kind of benefit, especially the whole day before, the 13th going into the 14th. We get really emotionally motivated to actually create change and to take responsibility for where we have hurt ourselves and also in turn hurt other people. Now, Mars in conjunction to Chiron, I would just say, because Mars deals with cutting, burning, severing, anything that can be about surgical stuff as well, machinery. And Aries is the face, it's the head, it's the skull, it's the sinuses. Just, if you have an Aries sun, moon, or rising, if you have any cardinal anywhere between 13 and I would say maybe even 17 degrees, just be mindful of these squares because it can, for some people, materialize as an actual injury, a burn, a cut, a scrape, something like that. Wear your helmets, kids, especially if you have little ones that have those placements. Keep an eye on them because they can be a little bit more accident prone. we often underestimate, you know, the trine from a full moon like this to some of those placements. It can just very quickly bring something up, or it can be bringing up wounds where we've been wounded or somebody wounded us, and then in turn we've continued that pattern of like going back to trauma drama. We have Stockholm syndrome in a way. We can't get out of being in like a toxic type of relationship or a scenario, or just a bad habit in general. Then we've got Moon sextile Saturn in Aquarius. So I like it. Right? I'm liking that a lot. I like the fact that the willingness to kind of confront that darker negative pattern is supportive of Saturn, and Saturn's kind of giving a nod, being like, yeah, this is kind of what needs to happen. You know, we need to kind of level up and take responsibility. I think the sextiles or the trines to Saturn are always nice because it's not as serious or somber. It's just more kind of like, nope, I'm rising to the occasion and I'm taking responsibility. Sag, you know, and Aquarius, it's interesting because Saturn is 2 signs away from Sagittarius. So it's about money, it's about resources, it's about our self-esteem, it's about our own personal integrity even. So that can be another theme that's kind of coming up. How we're standing up for other people, how we're standing up for the collective in general, even if we may come from a different background, even if we have different beliefs. You know, are we going to sit by and watch certain classes of individuals or certain ethnicities or certain genders or people who identify a certain way? Are we going to let them have their rights walked all over, right? You may not be somebody who identifies with their belief system or even their political beliefs, but are you going to allow them to be treated differently and cast aside? That's the question. There's going to be a lot of this that's going to be coming up. And I would say, if we look at history, history has a tendency to repeat itself. So it doesn't matter if you come from one background or the other. Once we start casting people aside in society, making them feel different, encouraging as a form of social bonding, us to turn against certain individuals and to make them feel like the odd man out, that's when we start having problems. Right? So I want you guys to think about that, because it may not be affecting you personally, but you never know when you're going to be the next person who's going to be on the chopping block. Then we've got Moon in conjunct the North Node in Taurus. So we call this quincunx. So it's pretty strong. It's within about a degree actually. So, you know, quincunx in conjunct, it's when those two planets, they're trying to reconcile, they're making a funky aspect to each other. It's 1 sign away from the opposition. So Taurus always makes a quincunx to Sagittarius. Sagittarius also has that same aspect with Cancer. The reason why I bring this up is because this is a full moon, right? So we want to look at what's going on with the moon. And when we're dealing with the North Node of the moon, it's saying something's not quite right, right? So where Taurus is like, I need to feel safe and secure. Sag is like, let's blow everything out of proportion. Let's just, you know, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. That's going to disrupt the North Node a little bit. So it's interesting that we're looking at a lunation that is very much about the past and what we're letting go of, right? What we're completing. It's a full moon. And then the North Node is like, yeah, but I need this for security. It's just blowing out everything that I thought we knew, right? What we thought we believed in, what we thought we needed. And I think it's going to be a really humbling experience, because it's going to show us actually, no, we don't need all of that stuff. We don't need to go and teach and preach to other people. Sometimes we need to take a step back and we need to actually really think about our actions and our beliefs before we decide that we want to get involved. So those are the most kind of prominent aspects. Certainly we're going to see a lot more in the coming days. You know, next week we're going to talk a little bit about Venus touching on the North Node. We're going to talk about Venus squaring Saturn and kind of the aftermath effect of some of the difficult decisions that we have to be making this week. Now, let's get into talking about where the full moon is happening for each and every one of the 12 signs. Obviously, I am a Western astrologer, so I practice tropical astrology. You want to listen for your rising sign. That's going to be the most accurate for my predictions. You can also listen for your sun or your moon if that's something that you'd like to do. You're just going to need to take a look at your astrology chart. If you don't know how to do that, check out a birth chart calculator online. You can put in your birthday, your time, and your date and your location. You're going to get that chart. You want to look at the 9 o'clock hour. That's going to be your ascendant. If that sounds like Latin, consider booking a session with me. Check out my links below. Check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I would be happy to chat with you. And we're going to start with the whole sign
for Aries and Aries rising. I'm going to tell you guys what house the full moon is happening in. I'm also going to let you know where Neptune is, so you're aware of where that square is kind of impacting you. And just remember, that's the blind spot. That's what you do not want to overlook, because that is what is challenging what is going on with this full moon in Sagittarius. All right, Aries rising, how are you doing? Obviously, this is not a bad one for you. It's happening in a sister sign. You've got your full moon that's taking place in Sagittarius in your natal 9th house. So this is themes like higher education, travel, completing legal or higher mind type topics. It can be about publishing, completing something. So if you're getting ready to graduate, if you're getting ready to go on a big trip, if you're getting ready to start a new practice or anything in regards to your spiritual stuff, maybe you're wrapping up what's been 6 months or even 2 years of just your philosophy and your beliefs changing in some way, right? Now, this is being challenged by the square from Neptune in your 12th house. So it's interesting because it tells me that there's what you've always learned or what you've always believed in, or maybe what you've studied or where you've lived or traveled. And then there's what's kind of going on behind the scenes spiritually. Both of these are very spiritual houses. I think it can also just be about changes coming out of the blue unexpectedly in regards to travel or in regards to your beliefs or in regards to even legal stuff. So that's something that you want to take into consideration. Especially if you're traveling internationally, I would say like just be on the lookout, that there can be definitely some things that can kind of catch you off guard unexpectedly that come to a close. Now the card that I got for you is the King of Cups. So this is interesting because this is a positive card. This is about a water sign. This can be a man that's a Pisces, a Cancer, or a Scorpio. But this can also be about you softening a little bit and being more emotional, more open, more empathic. It can also be about you just dealing with a situation where you're like, it's okay to feel, learning more about your emotions, and learning more about how to manage and handle your emotions as well. For Taurus and Taurus rising, this is a full moon taking place in your natal 8th house. So this is an interesting place to have a full moon. It can get a little active, it can get a little intense. The 8th house deals with other people's resources, right? Big events involving other people, your partner perhaps, gains, inheritances, taxes. So the 8th house is always what other people owe you, all of your karmic entanglements. Now it's also receiving a square from Neptune in Pisces, which is in your 11th house. So it's what do you owe friends? What do friends owe you? Or networks, right? Groups of people. There can be a sense of you going back and forth about like, well, are my friendships changing? Is something shifting? Can I trust this friend? Maybe like anything in regards to mixing business or pleasure with friendships can get a little dicey during this eclipse, this full moon. I keep thinking about that eclipse in 2020. I also have a feeling that it can bring up some really big financial accomplishment for one of your partners. And then there in turn, it can kind of benefit you, business or romantic. And somehow it's making you kind of shift your goals, right? Because it's with a square to Neptune. But I don't see that as being a bad thing. I think it's maybe you kind of shifting gears, kind of realizing that there is a way to reach your goals with another person. It doesn't just have to be you who's doing all the production or who's doing like all the financial stuff. There is some sense of somebody else kind of jumping in, and it helps you kind of shift your goals when it comes to other people and resources. The card that I got is the Six of Cups. Interesting. So this tells me that it can be about a friendship from the past coming back. And it can be about somebody who you have really strong feelings about. It can be about a friendship that kind of went sour, maybe because of business or money getting involved. Somebody reaching out and asking you, hey, how are you? Do you want to be friends again? Do you want to reconnect? Would you like to work together again? This is a card that is about positive reconciliation. It is about reflecting on sweeter times. And it can be you kind of looking at things going like, okay, that was a good connection, you know, before it went sour. Can we kind of rekindle things? Is it possible for us to reconnect in any way? Be mindful that this is also a card that does deal with some kind of karmic contract. So the give and the take. Interesting that it's happening as you have this full moon in your 8th house. So what do you owe somebody else? What does somebody owe you? Is it possible for you guys to reconcile? For Gemini and Gemini rising, you've got this full moon happening in your 7th house of relationships. Wow, wow, wow. It's a big one. Gemini, there's been a lot of stuff going there. You've had eclipses really kind of happening through your 1st and your 7th house for several years. A lot of Gemini risings had a lot of clearings happening in their natal 7th house, let people go, took on a new partner, whatever. So I think the full moon happening here is really interesting because there's always big changes happening with relationships. This is when I see people, have make or break moments. Some people kind of finally decide, okay, we're going to move in together, or we're going to go public, or we're going to get engaged, or we're separating, we're divorcing. These things do happen. So relationship or changing of title or status is a big thing that I see kind of coming up with this full moon, primarily because it's squaring Neptune in the 10th. So it's, do I want the world to know that we're Facebook public? Do I want people to know I'm dating my boss? Do I tell somebody at work that I'm single now and that I'm available because I'm going through a separation? It's bringing and tying together your 7th house of partnerships and relationships and your 10th of career. Now, this can also be a time where you're having to partner with somebody who's pretty prominent to help further your career, right? That's another way that this could play out as well. Because this is happening in your angular houses, similar to Virgo as well as Pisces, you are going to see that there is a lot of action that is going to be going on during the time of this full moon. Be mindful, okay, that you do not want to be having inter-office relationships. If you're in a relationship, if you need to wrap a relationship up first, so be it. If you are working for an employer, looking for another job, and you're using your current job as a reference, be mindful that somehow they can kind of get involved. They can get intertwined and kind of find out about each other. So watch out for deceptiveness at work is like the big thing that I would say. And be open to your status changing or evolving in a way that can help you partner with somebody else. All right, the card that I get for you is the Lovers. I mean, I'm not trying to like generalize here. This can be very general, but I just feel like with that square to Neptune is like, are you unhappy in a relationship? Are you throwing yourself into work because you're unhappy in a relationship? Is there some kind of attraction or something in the professional realm that's maybe a crush that's like taking you away from a relationship? And then I pull the Lovers, like, come on. If that's something you're doing, be careful, okay? Especially you, Gemini, because later this year, you're going to see with Mars retrograde in your sign, opposing this degree, squaring Neptune. It's about you asking yourself, how do I want to appear in the world? Are you in a relationship, but are you appearing like you're single? If that's the case, would you rather be single? Or are you like madly in love with somebody and really attracted to somebody, but you don't know how to approach them because you're like, we work together, Or is there this person that you really want to collaborate with, that you really would like to work with professionally, and you're really adamant about wanting to do it, but you don't know how to reach out? This is about making passionate choices and decisions. And this is your card. The Lovers does deal specifically with Gemini, so it's talking about options, choices, union, but this is more of a romantic card. So I'm wondering, is that playing out for you? Are you finally jumping into relationships and kind of wearing your heart on your sleeve and more so willing to show the world a different side of you publicly? Cancer and Cancer rising, hope you're well. This is going to be a full moon in Sagittarius. It's in your natal 6th house, which is going to deal with health, scheduling, busy work, delays. I know, your favorite things, right? And it's going to be making a square to Neptune in your natal 9th house. One thing that I would say is that this is about what your beliefs are being challenged about your daily routine and what you could or should be doing for work, right? So it's happening in your 6th. So if you need to get medical results, if you need to get a doctor, you need to see a doctor, get a physical. If there is a need to take the dog to the vet, if there is a need to rearrange your schedule and make more time for training or travel, that can be what you can kind of see with Sag in your 6th. It's about incorporating more time for prayer and belief into your daily routine. It can be this connection between health and wellness and spirituality. I've seen a lot of Cancer risings realize they do better on like an Ayurvedic diet, or they go and see like an Eastern practitioner. Maybe they see somebody who works with their body in a way that is incorporating some kind of different philosophy or belief or culture into their daily care. This can also be a time where if you've been sick or under the weather or run down, it can actually impact your ability to travel because it's going to be squaring Neptune in the 9th. But I think the bigger picture is work delays because of what you believe you can and cannot do. challenges in the workspace because it's in your 6th house, legal situations in the workspace. There can be living or working in an environment that's just not conducive to being able to get work done. So there's some need to kind of shift your schedule around a little bit. Certainly these schedule crises, do come up when you have a full moon in this house, but it's to help you shift your beliefs about what you could be doing or what your daily routine could be like. So look for scheduling changes. You'll be busy, but there will also be some kind of hiccups and delays around. And I would say if you're somebody who's opening a business, starting a business, anything in regards to what's the word that I'm looking for? Anything in regards to legality and workers' rights, right? Like you want to make sure you're doing everything to code, whether that's making sure you're giving breaks, making sure that the whole office space is up to code, that they have appropriate space to be eating lunch and all these things. Like you want to make sure everything is complete in that regard. It can also be about you organizing your life and making more time so you feel like you're working and you're able to have travel time. So if you're feeling like you're stressed out, you've been doing nothing but working, that can be coming up for you too. And needing to rearrange your schedule to facilitate travel if you are somebody who travels for work. The card that I got for you is the Knight of Coins. So this is good because it's saying slow and steady wins the race. You're going to get it done. There may be a need for you to invest more money into your daily routine, into learning new skills, maybe hiring somebody. The 6th house is help. So if you need somebody to help you reorganize your schedule, to help you get all your errands done, to help you walk the dog, watch the kids, that stuff, this is a great card. It's also talking about a new opportunity or an investment, but it's something that you're having to learn, or it's something that you're having to kind of put into action. It's going to take a little bit of time. Good financial news may be coming as well with this card. And look for support from earth signs. So Capricorns, Tauruses, or Virgos can be coming into the mix as well. This is a card that does talk about taking initiative when it comes to your health though. So if you're somebody who's like, that's it, I'm going to start eating better, walking more, or you're starting to kind of finally see the results of having made some of these changes, it's all going to come full circle. Now we've got Leo and Leo rising. You have got a full moon in Sag in a sister sign, and it's in your 5th house. Wow, 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 wow. That sounds super romantic to me. I could see some Leos that are feeling like they're falling in love with this transit. I could see some Leos that are also, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant with this transit, primarily because it's the 5th house. So a full moon in the 5th house can be about something coming full circle. So it's having dated somebody for several months, saying, I love you, having dated someone for a couple weeks. Yeah, I think we're good. We're going to go our separate ways. This is about the love that you give. And this is also about creative projects. So I think of the 5th house as children, love life, creative projects, happiness, fun, vacations even. So this can be a great time to be traveling. But be mindful that with this square to Neptune in your 8th house, it's like, are you breaking the bank, right? Does the other person feel the same way? Are they going to be chipping in as much, I would say be careful with investments right now, especially with the market, because there may be a sense of you being like, yeah, I'm going to make this big investment, 5th house speculative. But the square to Neptune is a blind spot. It's like not really knowing if you have the money to be investing, not really knowing if it's going to pan out. Be careful around the time of the full moon with that. That makes me a little iffy. But the 8th house can deal about, once again, our karmic entanglements with other people. So I think a full moon happening here is like how you show up and how you put yourself and your heart on the line, and you're all, fully invested and wanting to launch your own business or wanting to show a creative project to the world. It's like, how are other people going to receive that? And the doubt that can come with the Neptune square. So watch for that, but I feel like it's pretty romantic. I could see with the Neptune square also being a situation where if there was a sudden surprise romantic thing, or if there was a surprise pregnancy, it literally would be a surprise. It would be something that you don't see coming. It's just like out of the blue. The card that I get is the 7 of Cups. So this makes me wonder, Leos, is there a sense of you overdoing it? Is there a sense, the 7 of Cups can literally be about over partying, over daydreaming, oversleeping, overspending, and getting lost in this sense of all of the different options. I have definitely seen with squares between the 5th and the 8th, it's like, where are we doing things excessively, and where is it kind of getting us in a little bit of hot water, either financially or energetically, because of how we're getting entangled with other people. So this is not just about partying and drinking. Could be. It could also be about, you know, people who you're having sexual relationships with and just the back and forth and like whether or not that's secure, and if you're absorbing stuff from them that they're not working through or healing, or other people that they're involved with, right? Where you're kind of taking that in energetically. It can be about daydreaming and being overly fixated on anything is possible and kind of feeling like nothing is really sticking. So when it comes to any big dreams, desires, or passions, it's hard for you to be realistic. I would say try to put your blinders on, you know, scale back a little bit. If you're starting a new hobby, if you're launching a business or anything of that nature, just be mindful of your budget and take into consideration that you need other people to kind of meet you halfway in order for whatever you're doing to be successful. So make sure it's a good, clean connection. Now we've got Virgo rising. Hope you're well, Virgo. You got a full moon in your 4th house, and similar to Gemini, this is going to be a little active for you. Although the 4th house is private, right? So it's your private life, it's your home, it's your family. So certainly themes of home, family, the past can be coming up, but it isn't a challenge to Neptune in your 7th house. So it's about wrapping up the past when it comes to relationships. It's about whether or not you're going to let past relationships back in. Are you deciding that you're finally, you know, closing a chapter and moving away from a place that, you know, you had a shared home with another person? Is it about you finally getting to the next step in a relationship and deciding whether or not you're going to move in with somebody? It's being squared by Neptune in your 7th. I'm wondering with this particular square if it's like somebody who's saying to you, I'm ready for the next step. I want to move in together. If you don't want to do that, I have to go. That's something that could be happening. It could be you making the decision that you're finally, you know, closing the chapter on one person, and emotionally you're kind of really shutting that door and being like, I'm moving on to greener pastures. It can bring up themes of conflict with family, 4th house, and a partner. It can be like having your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse's parents, you know, over at your place, and there's some kind of like intensity, there's some drama, because it's going to be squaring your personal placement. So just be mindful of that, and know that there is this back and forth with either your private life and your home life and your feelings and your partner or potential relationships. Or maybe you meet somebody who lives somewhere else and they say to you, I don't know if I could really entertain a relationship because you don't live here. And then you're like, oh my gosh, could I see myself moving? You're being pushed out of your comfort zone, right? That's really what's happening right now, trying to get you to rethink where you're living. I guess the positive of all this is that if you want to move, if you want to close on a house, if you want to get into a bigger space, if you are ready to take that next step with a partner, any of these things are possible and may very well happen as long as you're staying open to actually creating that change. Oh, 9 of Cups. So this is a positive card. It looks like it's positive changes. It's like, yes, we're doing this. This is great. Now we're learning how to play house. We're moving in together. Yes, I finally, you know, I got the house. I got accepted. I've moved. I'm celebrating. I'm having like a big, you know, housewarming party. These are positive changes that are happening and big, big things. I think I've seen quite a few Virgos that are like, oh, I bought my first house, you know, or I finally moved into my first place, or I don't have any roommates. I've seen a lot of that going on for Virgo and Virgo risings. And I think it's a really exciting time and that you guys should be celebrating everything that's going on and finally moving forward and letting go of the past. All right, so now we got Libra and Libra rising. How are you guys doing? This is going to be a full moon in Sag. It's happening in your 3rd house, right? So this is all about communication, siblings, cars, short distance travel, but it's going to be putting a lot of positive energy into your sign. So I think it's also going to be about you having anything to do with like online businesses, websites, blogs. If you are completing, you know, a series of books that you've been writing or reading, if you're completing an online course that you've been working on or that you've been teaching, it's kind of wrapping all of that stuff up. It's also going to be about helping you communicate differently. There can be important conversations, there can be important exchanges also of contracts or negotiations. Be checking your email, be checking your phone, your messages. It's just going to be a busy time. There can be a sense of overscheduling. And part of this is because it's going to be making a square to Neptune in your 6th house. So it's delays in conversations, contracts, delays in legal documents and paperwork. It's can you fit it all into your schedule? Libras, you've been taking on a lot, way more than you probably should. So I think that maybe Neptune being the blind spot in your 6th house is overthinking, overworking, over-communicating, making you sick, is overscheduling, stressing you out. Online booking, digital mergers of schedules, things like that are really positive for you. And it's also about letting go of old ways of thinking or communicating that really does not serve your day-to-day routine, right? I think a lot of you guys are just overscheduling yourself, to be honest with you. But look for some of these themes to be coming up. There can be some kind of health stuff going on with a family member that puts a kink in travel plans. I could see that happening as well. Card that I get is the Page of Pentacles. So this makes me feel like it's definitely about you kind of weighing the options and being like, all right, I'm making time investments now. They're going to pay off in the long run. So maybe there's a sense of you making changes in how you're working, making changes in your daily routine, being mindful of how much money you're spending on technology, how much money you're spending on cars. There can be quick fixes and things that you need to do to some of these things like technology or vehicles. And if you make the change now, it can be something that pays off better down the road. It can be like a less costly expense is kind of the feeling that I'm getting with this kind of coming up. But this is also, what are you investing in terms of your mind, what you're thinking about, what you're learning, what are you consuming, and how much money are you spending on some of these topics? Good thing to think about, Libra. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, we've got a full moon in Sag taking place in your natal 2nd house. Well, this is kind of a big deal, Scorpio, so pay attention. This involves anything in regards to resources, payments, money that you earn, expenses. When you see a full moon in the 2nd house, there is this reevaluation of like, where's my money at? You know, where am I going? What am I doing? You've also been seeing that the sun's been moving through your 8th house, so it's change and transformation of other people's resources, how you can bring in more. So some Scorpios have kind of felt the pinch with what's been going on financially. Now we're seeing also that there is a square from the 2nd house to the 5th, and that's where we have Neptune. So Neptune in the 5th house can be about how much money we spend going out and having fun, going out to dinner, going out gambling, you know, or investing our time in creative projects, concert tickets, you name it. So there can be for some Scorpios being like, oh my gosh, I kind of broke the bank. Like I spent how much money on, you know, extracurriculars in the last month or so. But also Saturn in the 5th is the responsibility for creative projects, being self-employed, children. So a lot of Scorpios are like, I had a big expense come up and I had to pay for something for my kid. I had to, you know, change their insurance, or I had to buy them this expensive toy, or I had to take them on this trip, and like, the expenses for a hobby, right? How much money you're spending on starting a new business or a creative project. So there's this sense of the money that you earn versus your creative sense of self-expression. So I've seen a lot of Scorpios, I'm feeling this as well, just this back and forth between resources, payments, money that we owe, and creative projects. And there's this sense of pivoting in this back and forth that's like, okay, I can make money this way, but I want to do it creatively. You know, how do I do more of that? And where am I willing to kind of feel the pinch financially because I want to focus on this? Some of you guys are holding off on having children because you're like, no, we need to focus on having more money and having this kind of move forward before we do that. I would say the Neptune square is also reminding you that you can't let this idea of I'll be happy when, you know, I reach this, or when I reach that, when I make this much money, when this is this successful. You want to let go of this idea that you're going to be fulfilled when you've hit a certain kind of point, because that can kind of get you into some trouble with that Neptune square. And the card that I got for you, Scorpio, is the Emperor. Interesting. So this is, you know, this is Aries energy. I think of like Mars and Chiron, all these planets in the 6th, where like there's no doubt that you're busy, but it's what are you working towards and what are you prioritizing? I'm loving the fact that the 2nd house is making trines in Sagittarius to all these planets in Aries, because it's going to be you working hard and going after what it is that you want, and really putting your sense of natural talent to work, right? That's the 2nd house as well. So your talents are really going to kind of flow, owning it, right? Being busy, but really showing up and mastering something. The Emperor is somebody who makes really significant decisions. This can be about father figures. This can be about being a boss, being your own boss, taking the initiative and being able to handle the task at hand, taking responsibility also and managing money, resources, spending, and finances, making boss moves. I like it, Scorpio.
All right, now we got Sag. Sag, this is your party. How are you doing? Full moon in your sign. If you're a Sag rising, it's in your first house. So your body is feeling it. There's lots going on with your body. There can be a sense of you either feeling more confident and comfortable in your own skin more than ever, or there can be a sense of you being in your feelings, right? So a full moon in your first house, body, self, home life, big reveals, fancy new haircuts. Maybe you made a total change in your style, something like that. It's in aspect to Neptune in your fourth. So this is squaring Neptune in the fourth house, which is, I don't know how I feel. This is how I look. I look great, right? Look at all the progress that I've made, but this is how I feel on the inside. So there can be this sense of like your internal and external not really resonating and like really needing to come to terms, especially if you're a Sag rising with like, I might have the happy face on, but this is really how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm feeling a little blue. There can also be a sense of like questioning like, well, where is home, right? Like I know where I am, but I might feel like my heart is in another place or my family's in another place and I want to be closer to some of these people. There can also be this sense of you reminiscing on the past and maybe kind of looking back on some transformation that you've made over the last several years, whether that's physically, emotionally, maybe it's like you used to live there and now you live here, and maybe you're missing an old home, or maybe you're missing a time in the past, or you're missing a time when your family were all together, and it's kind of bittersweet because you're like, yeah, I miss that, but now I have more freedom. There can be something like that kind of going on. That's not really resonating, right? Because of that square to Neptune. And really it's just getting you more aware that it's not just about moving around and going through the motions, that if we don't take time to stop and think about and reflect on our feelings, that they can kind of catch up with us. Sag, the past can catch up with you. That's something that I want you to be mindful of this full moon. But I knew that it was going to be positive. You get the Magician, great card. Because I feel like for the most part, it's like, I wouldn't even say it's bittersweet. It's just like, yeah, that was my old life. And it's so weird because it was so far away. And like, this is where I am now. And it's so amazing. And this real need to kind of give up the ghost of the past, right? Give up the ghost, Neptune square. The Magician talks about creating the life that you want and visualizing where you're going and visualizing things and bringing things into fruition, right? So it's as above, so below. So it's reminding you that if you can start to see changes in the physical realm, it's coming from a change of mind. It's coming from a change of belief. It's coming from a change of your energy. And I think this is talking about anything being possible. So you might have gone through a really big transformation. There might be some like big new thing that you're doing, and you're going to be showing people what you've been able to accomplish over a period of time. And the Magician says you have everything at your fingertips to be able to make change happen. So be mindful of your thoughts, be thinking about moving forward, and be grateful for the past because it got you to where you are now. We've got Cap and Cap rising. You got a full moon in Sag. It's in your 12th house. Wow. So this might have you feeling a little lunar, little Looney Tunes. Full moons here usually do that. It brings up this theme of like the hidden self, issues with sleep, the need for rest, spiritual retreat, or time alone. Now, what's interesting is that it is in positive aspect to Saturn. So you've got Saturn in your second house. So I could see where it's like funneling that energy in and having you kind of take a step back and really reevaluate your security, your spending, what you have, what you need. You can be feeling in your head a little bit about money and resources. I would say just relax. Know that the full moon has you really releasing and purging and letting things go. Likely you will have a little bit of like a sleepless time for a couple days. The full moon in general does that, but when it's in your 12th house, I think we notice it a little bit more. Can be some really crazy dreams. It can be just something that comes out of the blue that you don't see coming. I foresee that it can be about spiritual epiphanies and or endings, right? Because it involves Jupiter. Jupiter is the ruler. You got Jupiter in your fourth. So are you suddenly moving? Are you suddenly ending something? Are you suddenly letting something go? Do you have a breakthrough with a therapist? Do you have a breakthrough in meditation, right? You need time to be able to go through this. Now it's going to be squaring Neptune. Neptune's in your third house. So it's a little hard to communicate how you're feeling. When in doubt, I would say go for a walk. Being able to write things out, write somebody a letter. It can be that there is some kind of communication that comes unexpectedly, like in meditation or in a dream or psychically. Great time to be reading tarot cards actually with that kind of that square.
And it can also be like you have a conversation with somebody that makes you spin out, right? With a sibling, or just you get an email out of the blue that just kind of sends you over the edge. And I would say take a step back, breathe. Don't let it be something that ruins your day. It's really important for you to consider, where is it coming from? Can you trust this information? Don't be spinning out over something somebody tells you, because it may not be all factual. And be a little bit mindful that you're going to be more sensitive to like media right around the time of this full moon. Consider the source is what I would say with the square to Neptune in the third. There can be some gossip, some slander, some deceptive stuff going on. May not be worth losing your cool over. The card that I get is the Page of Cups. So this is talking about emotional connections. It's like, are you getting really emotional because you're feeling like somebody's not getting back to you? Are you feeling like you're being left in the dark? Page of Cups can be like an emotional connection that you have to somebody new that you just started dating or seeing, and you're like, I haven't heard from them. What's going on? This can also be about younger people and you feeling a little bit more sensitive about younger people. So a younger person in your life, or a water sign, can be a Pisces, a Scorpio, or a Cancer. And I think this is also just about your feelings and how you're dealing with your feelings and getting overwhelmed because you don't know how to communicate. So like I said, walks, music, breath work, all third house stuff, journaling, these things can kind of help you express this, and it can soften and help you feel a little bit more comfortable being vulnerable and talking about your feelings in general. So when in doubt, maybe write somebody a letter, or sit down and do some journaling to help you through these feelings. You got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You got a full moon in Sag in your 11th house. Sounds like a party to me. Sounds like a lot of fun with friends, goals, networking, social gatherings, meeting people in different places, all kinds of diversity also in regards to your friendships in general. I would say good news can be coming from friends. There can be like get-togethers and parties and things like that happening, or some kind of completion of a goal. Maybe you're getting brought into a new network of people. Maybe these are networks of people who are all over. They're very culturally diverse. They live in different places. But the square to Neptune, which is in your second house, which is about money and resources, I would say be careful with whose advice you buy. Right? You can have some friends trying to sell you on some stuff that may not necessarily be what you think it is. There can be some, oh, invest in this, buy this, put your money here. And I would say be very careful doing that, because you may be getting some kind of advice, or there may be some kind of party that you go to and you're learning about some new stock or new like crypto coin. And they're like, yeah, buy it. And you buy it and then it tanks. That's the kind of stuff that can happen with this. So, I wouldn't be mixing financial advice and friends. Be mindful if you're going and you're on like networks or forums and you're talking to people too. Don't buy the hype, right? But for the most part, I think it's really getting you to think long and hard about what friendships you're valuing. Who do you want to hold on to? Who's kind of got your back? Are you going and celebrating and spending time and being around people who feel like you're kind of losing that connection to? So a full moon there can kind of change things a little bit. You can also just start to notice like a difference in terms of your values with other people, right? Going out, spending time with people, socializing, probably not the best time we would be talking about politics, religion, money, these kinds of topics I would be avoiding in general, just around the time of the full moon, because you can get into some really strong conversations where you have a difference of opinion when it comes to some of these topics that can create some friction. With friendships, the card that I get is the moon. So it's reiterating what I'm saying, that there's something likely that's going to come out of the blue unexpectedly, that you don't see coming. And the moon is also saying that it's something that happens subconsciously. So there can be some subconscious shifts with like, wow, I didn't realize that, I've got people that I have considered my friends for years, but like I really don't feel valued by them, and like what's going on there. So there can be this reevaluation and lots of feelings kind of coming up unexpectedly when it comes to whether or not you feel secure or safe, or some people kind of taking you by surprise when it comes to your friendship. So watch for that. Watch for that, especially whenever somebody gets the moon card on a full moon. I'm always like, and that's the one that's going to feel it the most. You might steal the thunder from Sag there. And last but not least, we got our Pisces. Pisces, how you doing? You got a full moon in your 10th house. It's go time. This is a really big time when it comes to career stuff, making job changes, taking new positions, launching something, really putting yourself out there, right? So a full moon's going to bring that up. It is in a square to Neptune in your first house. So it makes me feel like career's big, outer world's big. You're really hitting those professional goals. Everything's starting to come together. But how are you doing being in the spotlight? How are you doing being the person who's running the show? Are you doing something different? Are you now a manager? Are you running your own business? Is there a sense of like you really focusing on all of this professional growth, but it's exhausting, right? You might be kind of wearing multiple hats, especially if you're working for yourself. The good news is like, listen, Jupiter and Mars in your second house. So you see the opportunity and the possibility to bring more in, but you're definitely working hard for that money. And I think that with squares between the 10th house, which is our role out in the world, what we do professionally, our responsibilities, how everybody else sees us, with the square to Neptune, it's a little bit of like you going like, do I really want to show up for this? Like, do I really feel like going to work today? You know, I might wear this hat out in public and I'm, you know, this corporate person, but behind the scenes, I really don't feel like I resonate with that. You know, I'm having all these good things going on, but is it taking away from my ability to feel like I can do more work on myself? And where maybe there's a little bit of like denial of what's going on with you personally, or maybe even with your body, or there's some sacrifice you're making to be the person who's carrying the team. A lot of Pisces risings, I've seen this. It's a lot of like, you guys telling me I'm super tired, I have to keep showing up for work, or I got to take care of a parent, or I'm the sole provider, and all of the responsibility being on your shoulders. And this moon might be that turning point where it's like, yes, everything's going well, but at what cost? Right? What are you giving up to be able to make that happen? And yes, the world is seeing that you're having all these amazing accomplishments, but let's get real. Let's be honest about the fact that you're having to make a lot of sacrifices, either energetically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, to be able to facilitate some of this growth. And so it might show you sometimes working harder is not necessarily working smarter, even if you can have some really amazing things happening. I don't want to take away from the trines between your second and your 10th house, because definitely that tells me that things are going very well. Maybe you're starting new ways of being able to make money, but you can't burn the candle at both ends. You can't burn yourself out. You need to be doing something that you believe in. And I would say really pay attention to your body and your energy levels. Do something nice for yourself. If you can, Pisces, go and get a massage, get a pedicure, do some foot reflexology, something, because you can actually be feeling under the weather right when it's like you're needing to go and launch or do something very significant. Your body's like, nope. The card that I get is the Five of Wands. This to me feels like you're fighting something off, right? So this is some sense of agitation. This can also be like resentment and being like, yeah, I did this, but this is what I had to do to get there, you know? And being a little combative and a little confrontational. Certainly all the mutable signs are going to feel this. And I would have to say, you know, Pisces and Virgo, you know, I'm not saying that Gemini and Sag aren't going to get it, but you guys are going to feel this pretty strongly because you're going to be experiencing the T-squares. And for Pisces, I think this is about this learning to not feel like you have to push through things just to get the recognition, because it might come off either a little resentful or a little aggressive, or a sense of not playing well with other people just because you're trying to get on top of something, right? And you might realize like, whoa, that's not me. Like, I don't usually, you know, act this way. I don't usually behave this way. And you'll realize that it's from this compoundment of just, you know, working harder and not always being in alignment with what it is that you do want to be doing out in the world. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful, guys. I am looking forward to seeing what happens in the week ahead. Obviously, yeah, we're a little bit more than a week out from the full moon, but like I said, better safe early than later. I don't like doing the full moon videos like 2 days before, because then it's just like everybody's like melting down and running around like, what's going on? This week, just a couple announcements. On Saturday, the 11th, we're going to be doing live astrology readings, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern on the channel by donation only. So check that out. I'll post the link if you guys want to join. There's also going to be a new Midheaven podcast coming out Monday tomorrow. So you want to check that out. Myself and the Peace Dealer, we put that out every Monday. If you haven't already seen my Saturn retrograde in Aquarius video, do check that out, because it's going to explain what we're going to be working on karmically, where Saturn is retrograding in your chart for the next couple of months. It's very important because this is the last retrograde we get before Saturn is going to go into Pisces. I am available for readings. I'm booking into July and August, so I'm very busy. If you have a birthday coming up, or if you want to gift something, a session to someone, check out my links below. You can find my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. And while you're there, do consider signing up for my newsletter. I'm not going to spam you. You are going to be prompted if you'd like to sign up. That's just so that way you can be alerted as to when I have courses coming out. So we're going to be selling the Astro 101 Beginner's Astrology here soon. We are also going to be doing Tarot 101 pretty soon as well. So that's going to be starting up in the summer. I am just waiting until Mercury comes into a trine with Saturn. So probably about another week or two. And I'm going to release a calendar and let you guys know the courses that I'm going to have for sale, the courses that I'm doing that are going to be live, and a whole series of lectures that I'm going to be creating as webinars. So that way you guys know what I've got going on for the rest of the year. So if you want to learn with me, if you want to join me in some of my live discussions, you can do so. Let me know, where is this full moon taking place in your chart? Are you a mutable sign? How does it feel? Sag, what's the big reveal? Let me know. And you can come back, circle back to this video and let me know how the full moon goes for you. Otherwise, I will be back on Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to have some more astro musings. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the transits more so in depth. And I'm really excited to talk about Venus conjunct the North Node. I think that that's going to be an interesting kind of period of time over the next week where we can really focus on a little bit more sweetness and a little bit more love and security in our life. Until next time, I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the week ahead. Take care.